that had hunted across the galaxy for 10,000 years. They were tall creatures, standing nearly 3 meters high with 8 limbs that could move through any terrain. Their skin changed color to match their surroundings. Their eyes could see heat, letting them track prey even in complete darkness. They had claws that could cut through metal, and teeth designed to tear through the toughest hide. On their home world, they had been the ultimate predators. Nothing could stop them. Nothing could outrun them. Nothing could hide from them. When they discovered space travel, they saw the universe as one giant hunting ground. For thousands of years, they traveled from world to world, hunting every intelligent species they found. They collected trophies and stored memories of each kill in their genetic code, passing down the experience of every hunt to their children. They had never met a species they could not hunt to extinction. When their scouts found Earth, they were pleased. The dominant species was soft and weak. Humans had no claws, no fangs, no natural weapons at all. They could not run fast. They could not see in the dark. They huddled around fires at night like frightened animals. The conclave declared a grand hunt. 3,000 of their best hunters came to Earth, landing their ships in the deep wilderness where no human would find them. At first, everything went as expected. Humans died. They were careful and patient. They took only a few at a time, hikers who wandered too far from trails, researchers in remote stations, small villages in deep forests. They studied their prey, learning how humans moved and thought and feared. They mocked these creatures who needed tools to survive, who wrapped themselves in artificial skins against the cold, who could not even see a standing right in front of them. The hunters spread across the planet. They hunted in the Amazon, where the thick jungle provided perfect cover. They hunted in the frozen forests of Siberia, where humans stumbled through the snow like wounded animals. They hunted in the Australian outback, in the mountains of Alaska, in the deep woods of northern Canada. Each kill was recorded, each trophy collected, each memory stored to pass down to future generations. They believed they had found the perfect prey, easy to kill, unable to fight back, scattered across a planet full of hunting grounds. They expected the grand hunt to last for centuries, slowly reducing the human population while enjoying every moment of the chase. Then a hunter named or made a mistake. He had been tracking a lone human female through the Alaskan wilderness for 2 days. She was the survivor of a plane crash that had killed everyone else aboard. By all the rules of the hunt, she should have been easy prey, injured, alone, far from help, or had wounded her on the first night, certain she would die slowly while he watched. But was not ordinary prey. She had served 2 combat deployments before leaving the army. She had survived the crash that killed her fellow passengers. She had been bleeding and frozen and terrified when this monster came for her in the night, and somehow she had escaped. For 2 days she ran, and for 2 days something changed inside her. On the 3rd night she stopped running. She used her own blood to make a trail. She built a trap from the wreckage of the airplane using metal cables and sharpened aluminum. She waited in the cold darkness, her heart pounding, barely breathing. Or followed the blood trail, excited by how easy his prey was making this. He did not expect the trap. He did not expect the human to circle behind him while he struggled. He did not expect the sharpened piece of metal that went through his throat. Did not just kill him. She filmed everything. The trap, the struggle, his death. And when rescue finally came, she did not keep the footage secret. She uploaded it to every social media platform she could find. Within hours, the world knew that aliens were hunting humans on their own planet. The conclave watched the human networks with amusement at first. They had seen other species panic when the hunt was discovered. They had watched entire civilizations tear themselves apart with fear and denial. They expected the same from these soft, weak creatures. But something strange happened instead. The humans did not panic. They did not deny what was happening. They did not fight among themselves about how to respond. Instead, within 48 hours of video going viral, something woke up inside humanity. Something they had never seen in any species they had hunted. Every hunter who had ever walked into those woods, every soldier who had ever held a weapon, every survivor who had ever stared death in the face. They all looked at that video of standing over the dead alien, bloody and broken and absolutely victorious, and something ancient stirred in their hearts. For the first time in 10,000 years, they were not the only predators on the field. Part 2. The prey adapts. They had hunted hundreds of intelligent species across the galaxy. They had seen every kind of response to their presence. Some species tried to hide. Some tried to fight with the few weapons they had. Some collapsed into chaos and made themselves easy targets. Some accepted death as inevitable and simply waited for the end. Humans did none of these things. Within 72 hours of video reaching the public, something extraordinary happened. Humanity did what no other species in history had ever done. They shared everything. Every piece of information about the hunters was collected, analyzed, and distributed to everyone who needed it. Soldiers and scientists worked together. Governments that had been enemies for decades put aside their differences. Indigenous communities who had noticed strange disappearances for months finally had their observations taken seriously. They watched this happen with growing confusion. In their genetic memory spanning 10,000 years of hunts, there was nothing like this. Prey species fought among themselves. They competed for safety. They sacrificed their weak members to protect themselves. They did not unite. They did not share information with potential rivals. They did not make themselves stronger as a group. But humans did. Within a week, the hunters found that their camouflage no longer worked as well. Scientists had analyzed the recovered body of ore and found the exact spectrum of light that could reveal the skin. Special filters were developed, manufactured, and distributed to military forces and wilderness patrols around the world. Suddenly, the invisible hunters were no longer invisible. The hunting grounds became killing fields. In Brazil, a coalition of indigenous warriors and special forces soldiers worked together. The indigenous people knew the jungle better than any outsider. The soldiers had weapons and training. Together, they tracked a pack of 12 for 3 days through the Amazon. Then they ambushed them at a river crossing, using techniques their ancestors had developed over thousands of years of hunting in those same forests. 9 died before the rest escaped. In Siberia, hunters who had spent their lives tracking wolves and tigers turned those same skills against the alien invaders. They set traps using their knowledge of animal behavior, modified slightly for a new kind of prey. They followed tracks through the snow with patience that matched the own. When they finally cornered their targets, they did not hesitate. In the Australian outback, a man named Jack became famous for killing 4 alone. He was 63 years old, a retired hunter who had spent his entire life in the bush. When asked how he had managed it, he simply said that he had tracked more dangerous things than aliens in his time, and these creatures were not as smart as they thought they were. They tried to adapt. They moved deeper into the wilderness, choosing more remote hunting grounds. They became more careful, more patient. But the humans adapted faster. Drones with thermal cameras swept through forests. Satellite systems tracked unusual heat signatures. Networks of volunteers reported every strange sighting, every unexplained disappearance, every clue that might lead to a hunter. The hunters found themselves being hunted. What disturbed the most was not the technology or the organization. It was something else, something they had no name for in their language. They called it the broken instinct, because it seemed to violate every rule of survival they had ever known. Humans who were dying did not just die. A wounded soldier in Canada, bleeding out from injuries that would kill her in minutes, used her last moments to transmit her location so others could continue the hunt. A group of hikers in Chile, surrounded and outnumbered, rigged explosives and waited for them to come closer instead of trying to escape. A farmer in Romania, knowing he could not outrun the creature that had invaded his land, set his fields on fire to slow it down while his family escaped. Humans did not just want to survive. They wanted to win. and they were willing to sacrifice themselves to ensure that humanity would be the one left standing when the fight was over. The conclave held an emergency council. For the first time in their long history, they debated calling off a hunt. The Grand Hunt of Earth was supposed to last for centuries, a glorious campaign that would add humanity to their long list of conquered species. Instead, they were losing hunters at a rate they had never experienced. More than 500 had died in just 2 months. The decision was made to retreat. The surviving hunters would fall back to their hidden ships and leave this cursed planet behind. They would not admit defeat. They would simply say that the hunt had been suspended, that they would return when conditions were more favorable. It was a lie, but it was a lie that preserved their pride. They should have left sooner. The humans had already found their ships. Every hidden vessel, every emergency cache, every supply depot, the humans had located them all. They had traced energy signatures, followed patrol patterns, mapped landing zones. And now, as they tried to retreat, they found human forces waiting for them. The siege began. They discovered something else about humans that their genetic memory had not prepared them for. Humans were very, very good at waiting. They set up positions around the hidden ships and simply refused to move. Days passed. Weeks passed. They tried to break through, and each time they were driven back with heavy losses. They tried to wait the humans out, but the humans just brought more soldiers, more supplies, more patience. For a species that had always been the hunter, being trapped was a new and terrible experience. The few who escaped Earth's surface carried a warning back to their people. This species was different. This species was dangerous. This species had taken their greatest hunters and turned them into prey. The conclave received the warning and made a decision that had always worked before. They would send reinforcements. They would come in overwhelming numbers. They would show these humans what happened to prey that forgot its place. It was the worst decision they ever made. Part 3: Extinction Event. The distress calls went out to every ship in the galaxy. The message was simple. The Grand Hunt of Earth had become a war, and every hunter was needed. Within months, the entire species was on the move. Every ship, every warrior, every juvenile old enough to hold a blade, all of them traveled toward the small blue planet that had dared to fight back against the greatest predators in the known universe. They expected to overwhelm the humans with sheer numbers. They had done this before with other species that had shown unexpected resistance. A few thousand hunters might face difficulties, but when millions arrived, no prey could stand against them. Humanity watched them come. In the months since first contact, humans had not been idle. They had taken apart every piece of technology they could find. They had studied the alien metals, the power systems, the weapons, and most importantly, they had studied the stealth technology that made hunters invisible. Then they had done something no other species had ever managed. They had it. It took human scientists 6 months to reverse engineer technology that had been developed over thousands of years. They did not just copy it, they improved it. They adapted it to human manufacturing. They found ways to mass-produce it. By the time the fleet arrived at Earth, humans had stealth satellites in orbit, stealth aircraft in the sky, and stealth equipment for individual soldiers on the ground. The first wave of reinforcements was destroyed before they understood what was happening. Ships exploded from missiles they never saw coming. Landing craft were shot down by weapons that seemed to appear from nowhere. Hunters who reached the surface found themselves facing enemies who could vanish just as easily as they could. The ground war was even worse. They had expected primitive resistance on the surface, perhaps nuclear weapons that would poison the land, or chemical attacks that would harm humans as much as aliens. Instead, they found a planet that had been transformed into a weapon. Cities had become kill zones. Every building, every street, every underground tunnel had been designed to favor defenders. They were used to hunting in wilderness, where their speed and stealth gave them advantages. In urban combat, those advantages disappeared. Humans knew every corner, every hiding spot, every way to channel enemies into ambush points. Wilderness areas were no longer safe either. Automated defense systems patrolled the forests, using artificial intelligence that learned from every encounter. The systems did not get tired. They did not make emotional mistakes. They simply got better at killing with each passing day. But the technology was not what truly defeated the. It was something else, something humans called psychological warfare. They had spent 10,000 years being the ones who caused fear. They had never experienced it themselves. They did not know how to handle enemies who understood terror and used it as a weapon. Humans played recordings of dying through speakers in the forests at night. They left the bodies of dead hunters in places where others would find them. They sent messages to the fleet, detailing exactly what they would do to every alien who set foot on their world. The hunters began to break. For the first time in their genetic memory, experienced fear, real fear, the kind of fear that prey felt when they knew they could not escape. Some hunters refused to leave their ships. Some turned on each other in disputes over who was responsible for the disaster. Some simply gave up, sitting in darkness and waiting for the end they knew was coming. The war lasted 3 years. At the end, less than 1,000 remained alive, fleeing toward their home system with human ships in pursuit. They thought they would be safe once they reached their own world. They were wrong. Humanity did not stop at defending Earth. They had learned something important about these creatures had hunted other intelligent species to extinction. There were 17 worlds in the galaxy that had once held civilizations, now empty because they had killed everything that could think. Humans decided that this would never happen again. The pursuit of the surviving lasted 11 years. Human ships followed them across the galaxy, never stopping, never giving up. When crew members retired or died, they were replaced by others who continued the mission. They fled from system to system, but everywhere they went, the humans eventually followed. The last died on a small moon orbiting the world where their species had first evolved. It was their sacred place, the birthplace of the greatest hunters in the galaxy. A squad of human soldiers found them there, 12 survivors, starving and exhausted, too weak to fight. The soldiers offered them a chance to surrender. They refused. In their culture, surrender was worse than death. They charged with their last remaining weapons, and the soldiers ended it quickly. The team leader, a woman named Maria Santos, stood over the last fallen body and spoke into her communication device. "This is Sierra Team reporting from the home system. Target species has been eliminated. All hostiles confirmed dead. The hunt is over." Back on Earth, the news was received with quiet satisfaction. There were no celebrations, no parades. Humanity had done what needed to be done, and now it was finished. In the years that followed, humans spread across the galaxy. They found the 17 worlds that they had emptied, and they mourned the species that had been lost. They discovered that some civilizations had survived, hiding in remote corners of space, afraid to show themselves because they knew the hunters were still out there. When these survivors learned that they were gone, they did not believe it at first. 10,000 years of terror had taught them that the hunters could not be stopped. But humanity showed them proof: the empty world, the collected genetic samples, the records of the final hunt. Several of these species asked for human advisors to help train their own defense forces. Every request was granted. Humanity had learned an important lesson about the galaxy. There were predators out there who saw other intelligent beings as nothing more than prey. And humans had decided that they would never allow another species to suffer what almost happened to them. The woman who had killed the first lived long enough to see the war end. She was 93 years old when the news came that the last of them was dead. A reporter asked her how she felt. "They made a mistake," she said. "They thought we were prey because we did not have claws or fangs. They did not understand that the most dangerous thing about humans is not our weapons. It is that we do not give up. We do not stop. We do not forget." They should have chosen a different planet. She smiled, and there was something cold in her eyes, something that would have made the hunters understand, too late, what they had really faced. They came here thinking they were the hunters. They never realized that they had walked into the territory of the most persistent predators in the universe. We evolved to chase things until they dropped from exhaustion. We invented tools not because we were weak, but because we wanted to kill things more efficiently. We built civilizations because we wanted to kill things together. She looked at the camera, and her smile faded. We are not prey. We are what prey becomes when it decides it will never be hunted again. And now the galaxy knows. If you come for humanity, we will follow you to the end of the stars. We will hunt you to extinction, because that is what we do. We are human, and we do not stop.